All right, we're going to call to order. It is 10 o'clock. We do have a quorum here with Casey being gone. If everybody will join me with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you. I need a motion to accept the staff report into record.
I'll make a motion to accept staff report into record.
All right, I got a motion.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second to accept the staff report into record. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. Everyone's got a chance to look at the minutes. Did anybody have any corrections for those, or? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All right, I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. All right, City, turn the time over to you to discuss the Board of Commissioner meeting last time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. At the May 20th, 2025 Board of County Commissioners meeting, a conditional use permit for a campground requested by Jared Triplett was approved. And that was it. We only had the one there.
All right, thank you. All right, that will move on to the public hearings portion, and I will turn the time back over to Cassidy for Joseph Fleim Sunlight Services conditional use permit renewal.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property we're looking at today is Foothills Lot 12. It's located at 18 Wilkins Peak Drive in Rock Springs. The current zoning is I2, it's heavy industrial, and it's also located within the growth management area and the growth management area highway overlay district. The infrastructure is West Side Water and Sewer District, City of Rock Springs Water, Fire District Number 1, Rocky Mountain Power, Dominion Energy, and then there's Wilkins Peak Drive. It's also a county road. And again, our applicant is Joseph Fleim, and he's also the property owner. The purpose of this hearing is to renew a conditional use permit that Mr. Fleim obtained in June of 2023 for an impound salvage and storage yard that's located at 18 Wilkins Peak Drive. Mr. Fleim also owns and operates another impound salvage and storage yard that's located nearby at 35 Wilkins Peak Drive. So here you can see the zoning map. We've got shown on there just the district overlays. The highway overlay is what's shown in the blue. And then the site map, you can see just the aerial view of the location we're looking at today. We posted public notice on 4/22 of 2025, and we've got pictures from the north, east, south, and west view of Mr. Fleim's property. And that'll bring us into conditional use permit review criteria. There are 9 that we look at, and then also with this type of facility, we look at some special requirements as well. So the first is that they cannot be established within 600 feet of a church, school, or residential zoning district, or within 1 mile of a recreational facility. And this property is well away from any church, school, residential zone district. It's located in an industrial subdivision. B is that the hazardous waste inventory identifying possible storage or discharge of hazardous waste is done. And with this one, the applicant will be responsible for maintenance and proper disposal methods in conformity with the DEQ regulations. C and D have to do with screening and fencing that is required. Basically, we do require fencing and screening if the property is abutting a less intense zoning district, or if it's within a special overlay district within the growth management area, which this site is. It's surrounded by agricultural zoning to the north, light industrial to the east, and then heavy industrial to the west and south. and it is also located within the growth management area, highway overlay area. In 2023, when Mr. Flime was issued a conditional use permit for this facility, one of the conditions of the permit that was listed was that 100% screening was required along the south and east boundaries of the property, including the gates. So kind of just continuing on with that a little bit, Mr. Flime has attempted to comply with this condition. However, 100% screening has been problematic for him, especially on the gates. It's caused some damage and been difficult. So he did adjust by removing about 50% of the slats, the screening there. So on the gates and on that east side of the property, it'd be about 50% that's there right now of the screening. And he would like to propose that 50% screening be permitted due to his concerns regarding the gates. And he also has stated some safety concerns with 100% screening, and I can let him speak to that a little bit. E is that no stacking of vehicles is allowed over 6 feet in height unless approved by the board. And on this property, vehicles will not be stacked over the height of 6 feet. F, the business must be licensed with the state of Wyoming, and Mr. Flime has provided staff with a copy of his vehicle and disposal license, or storage and disposal license. And then G has to do with the terms of the conditional use permit. For impound salvage and storage yards for vehicles, they're termed for 2 years, and then the applicant can reapply for a new one. And then after that, they could be termed for a period that's established by the board. And so if the board approves, the applicant has requested that this conditional use permit be in effect for an indefinite period of time. We did not receive any comments from agency or from the public. And that brings us into our staff recommendation. Land use staff recommends approval of this conditional use permit for an impound salvage and storage yard operated by Joseph G. Flime with Sunlight Services with the following conditions. First, that the conditional use permit is personal to Joseph G. Flime for 18 Wilkins Peak Drive. The conditional use permit is in effect indefinitely as long as the business remains in compliance with county regulations and holds a valid Wyoming vehicle storage and disposal facility license. 3, vehicles cannot be stacked higher than 6 feet. 4, the existing screening must be maintained. And then 5, vehicles, trailers, etc., must be stored within the screened fence area, which is a condition that I carried over from the previous conditional use permit. And that is everything for this hearing, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Cassidy. The applicant would like to come forward and introduce yourself, and if you have anything you want to add or.
My name's Joseph Flime. I live in Rock Springs, Wyoming. I don't really have anything to add. If you have questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Yeah, does the commission have any questions?
No questions.
Yes, I did have some questions. It talked about you removed some of the screening due to safety reasons.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on what those safety reasons are?
Okay, on the east side, towards the highway, we have slats there. It's about 7 slats in one hole, so it's about 87.5% due to wind concerns. On the south side, that's the Wilkins Peak street side. In the fence itself, we have 3 slats in one hole, so it's about 75%. The gates are about 50%, and on that side of the street, that's where the sheriff's department patrols. So we like them to be able to see into our yard. And we also like to be able to see out of our yard if cars are parked outside of the fence and that type of thing. On the gates, the wind is a big concern. I mean, it picks them up, it throws them. We've put counterweights on them, probably 100 pounds, 150 pounds, and that didn't do it. So we pulled the slats to 50%, and it seems to keep the gates in place. It still breaks the wheels off just with the wind, but So
Okay.
we have security concerns and, you know, wind concerns as far as safety and that.
All right, yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Just one, mostly for Eric. Has there been any complaints on this property since the last one?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lyon, no complaints whatsoever. Do want to comment on the, one thing that came up as a condition on the original permit was screening at the rear of the property potentially. And it was for me to go out and evaluate it, I don't know, 6 months later, and I don't think it's necessary. There's so much vegetation back there. So just to clear that one up. I agree with Mr. Fleim. He is in a heavy industrial zone district, which is where you want to site this type of use. The scenic overlay really, and the highway overlay and scenic, because that's the reasoning why the screening. I can totally sympathize. I went out there, met with Mr. Fleim maybe a year or so ago, and I can see the issues with this if you do 100% screening in the fence. As far as the county facility goes, I don't know if it's 50%, but it's not 100% either. And the issue there is that long-term maintenance of wind blowing and such. I think what was intended for the scenic overlay was when you're driving down 191 on your way to the gorge, you had screening along there. Mr. Fleim's property is way back at the back of that subdivision. So it's really not noticeable. And he's done a great job of running that facility. So he's done a really good job with that. So I think with what he has out there suffices for the renewal, and I don't see any issues with it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anything else for Mr. Fleim? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I will open this up to the public. Anybody who wants to speak for or against or in general, now is your time. All right, seeing none and hearing none, we'll close the public portion. And does the commission have anything else they want to add or? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we extend this with land use staff recommendations.
All right, I go to motion to approve with staff recommendations. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we got a first and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Yep, no problem.
Enjoy.
Yep, thank you.
All right, we will now go into public hearing number 2. The land use staff has put this together for our language amendment, and I'll turn the time over to you. I'll turn the time over to Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No problem. So I'm gonna, once we pull that up on the screen, that'll be easier for you because there's a lot of pages in the zoning resolution. So what we're focusing on today is, especially with the departure of 2 planning and zoning members, and you've worked through a lot of permits and such as telecommunication towers has kind of been an issue as far as regulations we've lacked. And then also with the RV campground stuff. And I appreciate meeting with Commissioner Lyon, Commissioner Jasperson, also being able to meet with us and discuss the RV campgrounds regulations. So I'm gonna wait for that to come up. Oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
Sure.
no problem. Yeah, let's just do that.
Good to stand on one foot when you plug it in.
Right.
There you go. Okay. So we'll start in the use chart. So what we'll get in there and what this is we're going to talk about wireless communication facilities first. And then we'll get into the actual regulations that where I met with Mark and John, and we sat down and we went through the RV stuff. So that's coming up. So we'll have a supplemental use regulation section, which has been long needed in the zoning resolution, which will address specific uses where we need it. So what we did here is this is also will reflect in the chart in the supplemental use regulation. So what we're trying to do is cite telecommunication towers. That's been an issue. And this makes it a little bit, it makes it definitely more clear for the service providers to cite them. And so that's what we're looking at. And really what you want to cite them to is according to height. And so that's what we've done here. So the first, when you get into public services part of the use chart, the first thing we're going to be looking at is wireless communication facilities less than or equal to 35 feet with existing residential uses. So you're talking, oh, sorry, I meant to go to the top. Wireless communication facilities less than 35 feet or equal to with existing non-residential uses. Okay, so a non-residential use in a residential zone district, take for instance, might be a utility company. They're like, let's just say 10 Mile is in a residential zone district. So their district offices are in there. So that's an example. A school would be a non-residential use. So where you have a little bit more, not just a residence on there. So you would, what we're proposing there, if it's less than 35 feet on a non-residential site, that it would be permitted in all the residential zone districts, commercial and industrial districts, and MD1 also. Although we don't get a lot of those. Any questions on that, Mr. Chairman?
I don't. Anybody?
Okay. Then we go to wireless communication facility less than equal to 35 feet with existing residential uses. So obviously that's going to be a home. And that's when it turns from permitted to conditional use permit. So they would be allowed, usually you don't see that, but they would be allowed in most residential zone districts where you see the permitted use would be a like an apartment complex, multifamily complex is what you would see. So potentially you might have a roof mounted, you'll see that sometimes on the top of an apartment building, you'll see a roof mounted tower, or you might see a freestanding tower. Again, this will be limited to just 35 feet, but it will be conditional in most zone districts. Obviously, you don't have them in the commercial and light and heavy because you don't have residential uses as a main use in there. Next one is, so now we're going to up the game here and go from 36 to over 35 to 36 to 50 with existing non-residential uses. So again, permitted in residential zone districts and the non-residential, and permitted in ag, commercial, and the industrial zone districts. Then we go down to wireless 51 to 100, maximum of 80 feet in residential zone districts. That will be permitted in ag, but conditional in the growth management area because we're getting the taller towers in ag, and then conditional in all the zone districts. Probably need to put a C in. I'm not sure how I missed that one, but we'll put that in. I'm going to put a C right there, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Then the next height, we're looking to a lot taller towers. So we're going from 100 to a 199. Again, permitted and conditional in the growth management area, not allowed in any of the residential zone districts or commercial or industrial, but permitted in heavy industrial and MD1. And then the same goes for wireless communication facilities greater than or equal to 200 feet, permitted, conditional in GMA, in ag, and then in your heavy and MD1 district. So really, we could probably even combine, I just noticed that we could combine those from 100 to 200 feet because since they're the same thing. Yeah. So we could possibly consolidate that, but maybe save some space there. Any questions on that, Mr. Chairman, before we get into the regulations?
I don't. Is the commission?
Okay.
No, we're
All right.
good.
So let's get into the long-awaited campground. We had a lot of discussion last time. So just so you know, I tried to simplify them. I got a lot of comments on them. So we'll have a supplemental use regulation. So this regulation will rule when it comes to certain uses. So even if a zone district, let's say, has a height restriction or such, when we get in the telecommunication, this regulation will rule over that. Just so you know. So, but the commercial campgrounds, what I tried to do here is, I was trying to figure this out, and well, how do we address smaller, more higher dense, like especially within the growth management area? How do we regulate that? So when we sat down, had a discussion, and I did with Mark and John, we sat down and it's like, well, let's do it according to whether you put without water and sewer. I know we talked about amenities. I couldn't make that work. So the problem with that was I was almost requiring all the amenities or not. So that's why I still stuck with without water, sewer, and electric, and with water, sewer, and electric. What we did is minimum parcel size. So if you're more in a rural area outside the growth management area, you need at least a minimum of 5 acres. The minimum camp size is 300. As I was evaluating different regulations, I looked at Campbell County, looked at Fremont County, looked at a lot of different other counties, looked in North Dakota. This seems to be more consistent, that 300. I kept it the same on whether it's got those utilities or without the utilities. So as far as the tent sites go, because it really didn't see a tie to whether we needed to up it to 400 on whether it has utilities or not. Now with the RVs, that's a different scenario. So that's why we stuck with 300. So that'll be consistent with both regulations. When I went and just evaluated different averages, they were anywhere between 1,200 to 2,000 to 22,000 square feet were campsite sizes. So I kind of went with the 1,800 for RVs, which will also include the parking. That's because when I was noticing when you were going through and evaluating these different regulations and different jurisdictions, that square footage included parking. So, and then we drew it out and it appears it does. So so we went with the 1,800. Amenities, each site may include a fire pit or grill and a picnic area. Also to address some of the concerns from the last application that we had was concerned fire safety. And what this regulation does is includes a fire, they just have to include a fire plan, an emergency plan, and to be approved by the local fire code officials. So what that's saying is that they have some sort of plan set up. How are they going to address potentially if they're in a wildland area that's got high risk? They have to do a plan, have it reviewed by Alan, and then he gives his recommendations. And then if it's a conditional use, we would bring that forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of County Commissioners. So it's really putting the applicant in so they design some sort of plan that they will stick by. That's what that's there for. That was something new that we added in. Setbacks, minimum of 50 feet from all adjacent property zone residential. And we're talking about the campground campsites. The screening, where adjacent to residential, a solid fence, vegetative buffer, or other approved screening method at least 6 feet in height shall be installed. So you don't necessarily have to do a solid fence, but you could do some, but you got to at least have vegetation 6 feet high, not a little tree that you're going to wait 10 years to grow up. So anyway, trash and waste management, campground shall provide covered trash receptacles within 500 feet of any dependent site. Interior roads, they got to meet the fire code standards. And then sanitary facilities must be provided located no more than 300 feet from dependent campsites. That's your tent sites. Those sanitary facilities. And we did do a definition of sanitary facilities just to make sure that no loopholes there. And so that they have to comply with DEQ or Sweetwater County Environmental Health. More than likely it'll be DEQ because it's commercial. Then when you get into water, sewer, and electrical, where they're proposing all those, the big three there, they have to meet all the requirements up above. And then density requirements, we can go down now to a parcel of 2 acres. All the independent campsites, that's typically your RV sites, they shall be connected to water, sewer, and electrical. And in lieu of sewer, they can do a sewage disposal system. They can do a sanitary station, which is a dump station. All potable water and sewage, they all need to comply with that. Campsite minimum is 300 to match the one above. And then we went with 1350, you go with smaller RV sites when you have all those utilities, which includes parking and the utility hookups. I'm going to stop right there, Mr. Chairman, if Planning and Zoning Commission has any questions.
Any questions? I think we're good.
Okay. Okay, we go into wireless. And I'm not going to read word by word on these, but I'll just explain a little bit of what we've got here. So, except as provided in subsection 2, those will be exempt. The ones that are in that list there do need to get permits. So existing and proposed antenna support structures, that's just your regular cell tower, okay? Replacement antenna supporting structures, broadcast antenna supporting structures, and co-locating combined antennas on existing supporting structures. This DAS, so what those are is you'll see, I don't know if we have any in the county, but they're usually in higher dense areas when there's no room to put cell towers. You know, they're just highly dense areas. They'll put them on utility poles. They're just little antennas that they put around in lieu of cell towers. The downside to those for the providers is they got to put a lot of them out there because they just don't have the capacity. But it's just a way that they can put those things up and, you know, so that's what a distribution antenna system is. Roof mounted antenna supporting structure is pretty self-explanatory there. They go on a roof. And then stealth wireless communication facilities. Chairman Keaton West will get what he has long wanted, which is stealth communication facilities. He'll be a very happy camper. Didn't get him at the city. So, all right. So following are exempt. So installation of an antenna and equipment. So if you're just installing an antenna and equipment on an existing support structure, you don't need a permit. By the Telecommunication Act, amateur radio operators are exempt. So we don't have a choice in the matter there. And then regular maintenance of any existing wireless communication facility does not need a permit. Any wireless communication that is not visible from the exterior of the building in which is mounted, distribution, DAS, because they're just on those utility poles. You know, they're not a big deal. So we'll get a little bit into, so really what the development review and permitted, we just went through this. This is just actually the table that reflects what we just talked about. So we were going to have zoning permit approval, which is us, and conditional use permit approval, which is the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, and then the Board of County Commissioners. Final decisions can, of course, so when you do, if we ever do deny, whether it's the staff, because it's, you know, because it's an administrative, we have to, in writing, supported by findings, fact, and conclusions of law contained in a written record. So that's actually required by the Telecommunication Act. You just can't deny something just because you don't like it. You have to actually state the reasons why you're denying it. So then submission requirements, they're in the chart here. So a complete application, a signed statement from the facility owner that they're going to be in compliance with RF emissions, elevation drawings. And just to keep in mind, they are submitting this stuff. This is because they're used to going in, having building code, they have to submit elevation drawings, foundation drawings. They're doing all of that. Original of the survey of the lot. And then shows all existing uses within 300 feet of the proposed facility, because that has come up as an issue. An engineering analysis showing that it meets the IBC, certified by a Wyoming licensed engineer. They're doing that anyway. They have to. Okay, so then we get into the standards. And so the first thing is your antenna supporting structures. Those need to be 110%. That's new. Okay, so that's something brand new from adjoining property lines. Now, there is a way of actually reducing that setback, and that's when you do a stealth tower, and we'll get into that. But that's what could potentially push someone in the direction of a stealth tower, is if they want to reduce that setback.
That's something we've dealt with is.
Yeah, yep, sure has. Yep. Yeah, so 100 from all adjoining, not lease lines. Okay, you have to specify that, because when you get out into ag districts, what they'll do is they'll have a 640 acre parcel, and then they're like, they want this tiny little tower, and they don't want to lease the whole thing. And so it'll be a very small lease site. So we don't want to take the setback, because we used to take the setbacks from those lease lines, and you just force people into these giant leases when really, to be consistent, this is what you do see in different jurisdictions, is that you're taking that setback from property lines. Okay. So from residential rights of ways, occupied structures, public and private streets. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. And then the overall height of the antenna supporting structure shall be with the height requirements in table 1, which is the one with those height restrictions on them. Lighting, it's got to meet FAA, obviously. You don't want a plane going into it. So when they're above 200 feet, they need to have a light that comes on, that is continually on, and blinks. So that's why when you see those really tall towers, there's a blinking light. That's required by federal FAA. So we're also asking site lighting be placed with approved equipment. Closures, usually they're on the side of a building, that they be fully shielded to prevent light trespass, meet the requirements of the Sweetwater County lighting regulations and FAA and FCC. We just threw that all in there. So the next one, proliferation minimized. So what we're doing here is we are stating to the providers what we would like to see when they're siting. In order to justify the construction of antenna supporting structure, okay, so if they're saying they have to build one, they must demonstrate the higher ranking alternatives. So what you would like to see them do is co-locate. So this happened in Clearview Acres, just so you know. You never saw the tower, but Verizon wanted to do a tower right across the street from Union. And so then, that's a big footprint. So then you're starting to put all these antennas everywhere, and especially when they're right next to each other. So they worked out between Union and Verizon to co-locate on that tower. They don't like to do that because it does cost them money to do that. But what we're saying is, okay, and if they're in the middle of nowhere and they have no options of co-locating, they can show that and prove that. Then can they do a distribution antenna system? Maybe they can, maybe they can't. That's the one, or roof mounted. That's less, and then the stealth wireless communication facility, if that's a potential possibility. So if those priorities can't be met, then they have to at least show that they've gone through and, this is the reasons why we couldn't do these siting priorities. Okay. Fence of at least 6 feet from finished grade. Those are always put in. They don't want people climbing on their towers. Visual impacts minimized. Antennas must be configured on antennas in a manner that is consistent with the character of the surrounding community, and that minimizes adverse visual impacts on adjacent properties. Then we get it. So that's for antenna supporting structures. Then we get into roof mounted. So the location may be placed only on commercial, industrial, multifamily dwellings. And then the roof mounted attachment enclosure. This is an important thing. So this and or ancillary appurtenances may not extend by above the roof line of the building on which is attached by more than 20 feet. So what that is taking into consideration is the actual building. Because what you don't want, here's the roof mounted structure. Well, you're saying I can have a 200-foot tower or 35-foot tower on top of that. You can't. The building's considered a part of it. Okay. So if they do want to go taller, they can do that, but they may have to get a conditional use permit. So right there in the next one, roof mounted structure with an overall height, and we have a definition of overall height, which includes the structure, are considered antenna supporting structures. So bam, now you're an antenna supporting structure. Okay. Distribution antenna systems. Yeah, so they comply with they gotta comply with height requirements and do not require installation of new antenna supporting structures, are allowed in all zone districts. Okay. And that do not meet above requirements and are located in residential shall be subject to conditional use permit approval. So here's the stealth. So that's it for just the DAS. Like I said, I'm not aware of any in Sweetwater County, but they are out there. Now we get into stealth wireless communication facility. So this is where you can meet the minimum setback requirements for the zoning district. So now this is where the Board of County Commissioners and Planning and Zoning Commission get involved, and they can actually bring those setback requirements down if they're going to hide the tower. Okay, so that's what would be the reward of doing a stealth wireless communication facility, would be being able to reduce those setback requirements. And where you're going to want to reduce them is probably in a higher dense area. So overall height must be limited to that which is consistent with the scale and aesthetic qualities of the proposed facility. Okay. And that blends in consistent with the character of the surrounding community. If you drive down I-25, I just went to Denver this last weekend and came back. There are pine trees. I don't know if you've seen those, but they really are noticeable once you start working on telecommunication regulations. I saw them. And then you've all seen the bison just south of Cheyenne. That is a cell tower. So kind of cool.
I've actually seen one as a clock tower, so.
Have you? A clock tower? Where was that at?
In Scottsdale.
Okay. Cool. So these are the things, the criteria that you look at, when you're doing a stealth tower. And then discontinuance, this can become an issue. This is kind of to match what we've done in the wind farm regulations. When something goes dormant for 180 days or just discontinued, that this just allows us the ability to be able to, have that cell tower removed. Now, how are we going to know? We're probably not going to know until we get a complaint. So that's, so it's not going to be, oh, we're driving around. Are you still in operation? We're not doing that. What would typically happen is we get a complaint, or they would let us know, or someone else would be complaining, and then the clock would start on that. And we would give them a declaration of discontinuance and then removal of the facility within 120 days. Again, anything can be appealed, a notice of discontinuance to the Board of County Commissioners. Okay. I'm just going to run through the definitions real quick and then we'll open it up, Mr. Chairman. So what we've done is we've done definitions of everything. Antenna supporting structures, roof mounted, co-location, commercial campgrounds, dependent recreational sites, which is going to be your RVs, distribution antenna systems. It's amazing when you go through, it's an important thing when you do language amendments that you define stuff. FAA, which I couldn't believe we didn't have a definition, or FCC. And thanks to Cassidy, all her work on those definitions, and the Planning and Zoning Commission, all that hard work you did on those. Independent recreational sites, which is going to be your tent sites. Overall height. Personal PWS and personal communications. That's just defining that out. That's usually your Verizon and Union and other T-Mobile. Sanitary station is defined. Service building is defined. Short-term rental of campground. So because that is in the regulation, we have to define it. So that's for a period of not exceeding 30 consecutive days. And I'm going to have a weird definition here, but I'll explain why. Kind of threw it in there for a reason. And then your stealth wireless campground is defined. All your telecommunications site structure. Okay. This is the one that's like, okay, so now we're talking about tracks. Okay. So we've been getting, we've been receiving complaints as far as tracks, motocross tracks north of Rock Springs. And typically they're just because, not picking on north of Rock Springs, but it's because there's larger lots and not in Mountaineer. I'm talking further north, that area when they get into 2-acre lots and greater.
This has been there since 2006.
Yeah. Yeah. So to help, we needed to further define what a track is. We had a definition, but I don't want to get in. What we were getting into is where this complaint came in, and from our opinion, we went out there and I've got pictures. There was no track. It was a trail. And then you looked over in another area and there was a couple of jumps. So do we really want to regulate when someone's got a couple of jumps in their backyard? I don't think so. Because I know what the level of when we had a legitimate violation. So that's why I further defined this in here so that we can differentiate between somebody's just having fun in the backyard and when we're full-blown track. So it'll be now a continuous approved loop, circuit, or designated area, either indoor or outdoor, for organized riding or racing of animals. This use involves disturbance of greater than 5,000 square feet and or the movement of 100 or more cumulative cubic yards of dirt or other material. So that's what's been added. So what we're trying to do is you bring in more than 100 yards of dirt, area greater than 5,000 square feet. And just so you know, I had to look and do research on to find some numbers. And that's what I based it on. Of course, we can change those if you feel that's limiting too much or it's too much. I've seen some jurisdictions do 50 cubic yards. That way we're not getting into this whole thing of I put a jump out there and now I'm a track. So let's talk about for a second, because there's usually noise complaints. We can address that through nuisance. Only issue I'm going to say in the realistic is our office is 8 to 5. So guess when they ride is usually outside those hours. So it's going to be one of those things where we're going to be dependent on property owners to turn them in. And then, because we have to go out and do a noise reading. So really the way of regulating noise is through the nuisance ordinance, because you have to be at 60 decibels. On a motorcycle, you know, they're going to exceed that and when we take it from the property line. Okay. So that's where we're going to take that decibel reading from, or where the complaint is. So if the complaint is not right there, we'll take it from another location. So that's how we're going to regulate, and how we always have with the noise issue. Grading goes, that's when the dust comes in, and we would have to, if they go out and blade off a bunch of property without a permit, that's an issue. They got to have some dust suppression there. But get your thoughts on this, what you think. But I just feel like it was way too, what the definition was, an improved area. Okay, what's that? You know, and that's anything. And so just to be able to have people enjoy their property, but put a threshold there of when it becomes out of hand is what I'm intending here. So any thoughts, Mr. Chairman? Or
I have one of those backyard tracks
Oh, geez.
It's over. And I will tell you, the, our track at the rec center is more damaging to my rest in peace than them kids out
Oh,
there.
I know, you talking about the actual,
Listen to
yeah.
the stock cars going and all of that. That causes, I hear that more than I hear the guy who's only half a mile away.
Yeah.
So I don't know that's necessary in the long run. Out north where we have four-wheelers, motorcycles
Sure.
going
yeah,
sun up to sundown.
yeah,
You know,
agreed.
once it gets warm,
Yeah,
but they're mowing the yard causes a dust storm that goes across the thing. So I don't know that we need anything for track. I know people get upset and man, I want to sleep. Or the guy who's working graveyards might, but the kid can be another 100 yards over on BLM,
yeah,
and it's not that big a deal.
right.
You know,
So just,
in my
and I totally, and I actually agree with what you're saying there, because what's happening is people are riding on trails out there everywhere.
yeah.
And so that's not really the issue. The problem is under the current definition, without making any changes,
Mhm.
all that would be in potential violation. We're trying to give a threshold there so that we know, okay, now you've built, and we're talking about, I'm not talking about people riding
Yeah, 'cause-
around and
'cause
stuff
I
like
know in
that.
My development, the guy who built
Yeah.
my development.
Yes,
built
right.
Across, two neighbors built a motocross track across their
That's correct.
backyard, and
Correct.
I don't
Yeah.
know if it's still there. I hear the kids.
Most of it's been removed. Yeah.
Most of them shoot up side road and head up the mountain. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
or shoot down BLM, head cut across the highway, and
Yeah.
so, I mean, as someone who's out there, I don't have issues with it, and I don't see it often enough to.
Sure. No,
and
good
I'm
points.
living next to one.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
I just have one question, and so I'm thinking pump tracks. And so
Okay.
Pump
yeah.
tracks, I mean, you've got to have mounds and hills and jumps and that
Sure.
to actually operate in one of those. So would motorized change something if that was added into that? I mean, is that kind of what we're looking at, trying to eliminate is more of the noise issue?
Noise and dust
Noise and dust
associated with them.
versus- So
Yeah.
I guess that's, when I look at that, I'm thinking, well, that's a pump track. And as it's kind of described, and so I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on that.
So, no, excellent points on that too. So it's the current regulation or definition there says track, course, or speedway. Okay, so that's the three things, right? And we moved trail out of there because I don't know if you remember that. I think it was the last set of amendments because it was way too difficult. No, it says animal vehicle. So there's your vehicle. I don't know if we need to say motor vehicle. We can. I'm totally good with that because I think that's what that's intended. The athlete, struggle with that one a little bit. Because if I want to go in my backyard and I want to run around, that's a tough one.
We don't want to be too restricted.
Agreed. And so I think
We'll give
yeah.
more guidance
Go ahead.
to do it right than strict, I think.
so what are your thoughts of, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Lyon? We could strike athlete and put motor in front of vehicle.
Yeah, I think that kind of
Okay.
encompasses more of the issue versus having that in there.
We will still want them to get like a grading permit or something.
Yeah,
so they're
agreed.
making a
Ye-
track to run on,
Right. Yeah.
Just for dust. and things.
Yep. Yep. Someone.
Then you have it about 3 lines down again.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I just find the mouse. Okay. Any other thoughts, Mr. Chair?
Any other questions? Comments?
Okay. Great comments. Great discussion. Thank you for your help on that. That's and then further down, wireless communications facility is defined also. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Okay, I guess at this point, we'll open it up to the public for public comment. Probably is none since it's empty in here,
It still have to do it.
but I did it, so.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna close the public portion and is there any more comment from the commission?
I'd just like to say thank you to both of you for your time on the commission and good luck on your next endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay,
Go back, I think this is what we started our first meeting on 6 years ago, was a language.
Oh, really?
okay, so we close public portion, and then so I'll entertain a motion to approve the changes that staff has made. And then with your motion, please make it clear, it'll be with the changes that we made in this meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve this language amendment with all changes that we have made during this hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I got a motion and a second to approve with changes made during this meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0.
I have some other business when we get
Okay,
there.
let's hear the other business.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Lamb, for bringing that up. So I want to thank Rob and I want to thank Kelly. Thank you so much for serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've done some great work, had some controversial hearings, done some really good language amendments and such. We worked on the federal lands and resource plan, which came very valuable when I was working on the resource management plan. So that was very, very important. So just really appreciate, it's kind of a thankless job, that you have, but really appreciate you guys done phenomenal. Also, Rob, for just being the chairman and running the meetings, done an excellent job. And Kelly, you've been vice chairman for, I don't know how many terms, but quite a 5. Do a gold star statue, sir.
5. First one, Terry and Angela, then Angela, and then me.
Yeah. So thank you again. We've done some great things and some great work. And it shows out there and things we've improved with Sweetwater County. So I was sad to see you both go, but I understand. There's sometimes it just comes a time where you're like, you know what?
Somebody else's ideas,
Yeah.
opinion. I can't just stay forever, you know?
Yeah,
I'm here for the county, not.
Yeah.
me,
yeah.
You know?
So thanks, Kelly. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rob.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And then have enjoyed working with you guys.
Oh, thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yes, I think we've had good boards. While I was here, I enjoyed working with everyone. I've enjoyed working with staff. Staff has done a good job. I think they're fair to the public and I know in the past, it has not been fair to the public. And so I'm glad to see that our staff currently is. And so,
Appreciate that. Thank you.
all right.
John's always too quiet.
He's thinking.
He hasn't had the need to shut us down yet. So, all right, anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned. It is 10:56.